Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Coach's Corner University podcast. I am your host, Paul O'Neid, and today I'm joined by a very special guest. He is a former Special Forces operator with SEAL Team 6. He is an adaptive athlete in the strongman community. He's a coach, and he's working with a whole lot of different populations and spreading his knowledge. Scott Weaver, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thanks, Paul. I appreciate being here. We'll have a good talk here.
Yeah, I feel like this. I feel like this is going to be a really interesting conversation because a lot of the themes that I speak about, whether it comes to leadership, mental health, accountability. These are all things that have become more front and center within the military community. You're actually the first Special Forces operator that we've had the opportunity to speak to on the podcast. And I think there's going to be a lot of carryover to our coaching audience in terms of lessons learned. But I was hoping that, maybe you could start with giving us a little bit of a backstory.
Yeah, sure. So I did 24 years in the Navy. Started off with a bunch of different jobs, and then 9/11 happened. And I think, like a lot of the guys that go into the special operations, that was kind of a cement foundation on what you really wanted to do with your life. And so I decided to try and go into special operations. So I chose EOD, which is basically our Special Forces bomb tech units,
Oh, wow.
explosive experts, and it was a ridiculously hard training pipeline going into that. But I had grown up, my whole life in sports. I was already a gym head, and and I grew up on the swim team when I was a kid. So that kind of was like getting back to an old friend once I started working in the water, because the water comp is, I mean, as you can understand, like everybody's seen like all the pool hits and everything that we do in the Navy
Yeah.
for the special operations units. It's the
All the
pool,
buds videos on the beach and
dude,
all that shit.
the water is an equalizer for sure. Being just insanely comfortable with being uncomfortable in the water is kind of where you need to be. So I spent like a good year prepping for that. And then 18 months of getting my nuts kicked in through the pipeline, I made it and went. And this was during the wars, when the wars had kicked off. So like 2006, 2007 timeframe. And I went right to an EOD mobile unit and then right into SEAL Team 2. So literally out the door, just running and gunning. Deployments to Iraq, deployments to Afghanistan, Africa, Southcom. So actually had a deployment in Miami where we went and operated out of the Caribbean. That's where I met Mike, MDLP,
Okay.
uh, who's become like a brother to me.
Oh, he's the man. He's one of my best friends.
He's freaking awesome. I love him. Anyway, so yeah, all the combat deployments. I did end up getting blown up in Afghanistan. Had a very severe injury, which we can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll come up for
Because I
sure.
think it plays into a lot of the stuff like what you went through with your injuries. And I've had so many like high level uh, powerlifters and strongmen that have had like career altering injuries come to me, and basically it's just like it's another brotherhood, right? That you had
Hmm.
to mentally get over, that mental strength. There's only two ways to go. You either become like an alcoholic and writhe away in depression, or you use it as a challenge and then succeed from it.
Yeah.
Um, so, and we will definitely get into that.
Hmm.
Uh, and then yeah, so coming out of I was operating at SEAL Team 2, the top of my game. And then bam, flat on your back in a hospital. The doctor comes out and says, you're probably never going to walk again. You're definitely not going to be special forces anymore. Um, so it's like that weight. And then you're on all kinds of painkillers too.
Right.
So that's great for your emotional state. Um, Dude, dark places, very
Yep.
dark places. And I think any dude that's been through some serious injuries, whether it be military or whatnot, laid up in a bed when you're operating at a very high level, you can understand,
Yep.
those dark spaces. So I had a friend come in and he showed me this thing on Facebook about the working wounded games, and so that was kind of like a little spark, a little fire I needed to basically say fuck you to the doctors, and like I'm gonna prove them wrong, right? Um, and basically what it was kind of like a CrossFit hybrid competition for adaptive athletes from all over the world. Um, so I basically focused my rehab on that. My neighbor, who was one of my best friends, who's no longer with us, he was a SEAL, Seth Lewis, and just a freak, an absolute freak in the gym.
Mm.
He came down, and we were training like every freaking day to kind of go in there and see what I could do. So I ended up winning it 4 years in a row,
Oh,
and
fuck.
then yeah, um,
Just
I mean it
casually.
was
I just ended
yeah.
up winning it. No big deal.
Well, it was like right up my alley for what I had been doing. Right, a lot of the training that I had been doing it just played right into it.
Right.
I'm not a big CrossFit fan, but they also implemented a lot of strongman stuff in there too. So like
Okay.
I love. And my engine was really really good.
Hmm.
I still have a pretty decent engine for a bigger dude, but I'm getting old now. So I did that, and then I kind of got burnt out on it. And then I found powerlifting, which I had kind of always played around with powerlifting,
Yeah.
but only competed in the teams. Like we would do a SEAL Team 2 powerlifting meet or whatever. And I never really competed in any kind of like federation or anything. So I decided to go that route. I met Brandon Lilly, who is also like one of my really, really good buddies.
Hmm.
He went through a life changing injury
Yep.
too.
I spoke to him a couple months ago, actually.
Oh, I love him. Yeah, I think he had like 750 on his back and dropped it and like just
Same,
tore
yeah,
his whole.
same weight as me. He,
Mhm.
yeah, his was pretty shitty though because he had a number of infections afterwards.
Yes. So again, I kind of met him at Summer Strong, which if you've never been to Summer Strong,
That's right. That's where I met up with him this year.
okay, yeah, phenomenal place, Summer Strong.
Hmm.
So me and Brandon became really good buddies, and we started passing back and forth, information on like the mental toughness, and then he was coaching me in powerlifting. I started doing the cube. Love the cube, especially I think for older athletes too, because my CNS just gets fucking hammered when I
Yep.
lift heavy intensely 3 or 4 times a week. So to be able to do that once a week was like paramount for me.
Hmm.
Um, so and Brandon's gone through a crazy transformation too with him changing his life. But
Yep.
so I started powerlifting, competed in the SPF and Brute, and did I did like an amateur, like a just started off. I did pretty well, and then the next meet I took first and qualified for nationals, and then the SEAL teams came calling, and I had to deploy, so I couldn't go do any of that.
So
And
wait a
then
second. They told you, hey, you're never going to be a special operator anymore, and
oh yeah,
then
brought
you.
that up.
That's fucking awesome, man. That's
Yeah,
badass.
so in that year that I spent kind of gearing myself up for the Work and Wounding Games,
Hmm.
I was also fighting my way to get back into the teams, and rehabbing to go back into that. I found a guy that made so for me. I didn't get my leg completely blown off. What happened is my calf got blown off, so I lost like 75% of the muscle, exposed Achilles tendon, exposed bone. Like it was pretty gnarly.
Hmm.
Uh, so I had to learn how to walk again, but I thought I'll never run again. Found a guy a brilliant prosthetic doctor who made an exoskeleton. So once I went up and tried that, and went through their course, by the end of their course, I was sprinting full speed again.
Holy
Um,
shit.
dude, it was emotional. Like I started crying
Yeah,
because
no
I thought I
doubt.
would never run again in my life, and that was like the catalyst. Like, oh, I'm going to go back and get my team leader call again and go and deploy again. So a year of that, I went back, and I'll never forget the Master Chief. That at this point we had started. Guys were coming back from the wars, injured or killed, and they didn't really have any kind of like uh, you know, anything like any policy for like getting a guy that was basically medically retired back into an operator level, like
Hmm.
anything. So he kind of created this test, if you will, of physical like abilities, and it was fucking brutal, dude. I remember doing it, and here I was, self-proclaimed war hero, all this other bullshit, right? And I'm like, I've been there and done this. I've proved this. I don't need to do this. But he made me go through like some very, very hard shit.
Hmm.
Um, hindsight, and I've told him this too. I'm like, what we deal with in our job, you have somebody's life in your hand. You have your
That's what.
team's life in your hand.
That's literally what I was thinking. Yeah.
Yeah, and if you can't perform to that level, then it's not just you; it's somebody else's life that you're
Hmm.
dealing with. So in that aspect, 100%. I'm glad that I went through that, but I did, and requalified as a team leader, and then back out the door deploying again with SEAL Team Two. Um, in fact, when I went to, let's see, Africa and the Caribbean was after I got blown up. Um, and so, but during that time, I had really gotten into strongman, um, and Mike DLP, the Battle Axe gym. I remember I was down there in Miami for 6 months, and we were just doing like J sets. So basically doing exercises all over the Caribbean.
Okay.
Um, we actually did take down an ISIS cell in Trinidad and Tobago over there. That was kind
Oh
of cool.
damn.
But so I just Google like strongman gyms or powerlifting gyms in Miami, and the Battle Axe comes up, and
Of
I'm like,
course.
that's fucking perfect. I love it. So I email him, and I didn't know it was like an invitation only gym.
Hmm.
Dude was hardcore, right? But that's exactly what I love. I
Right.
like come from the old school like dungeon, the Dorian Yates in the basement, type shit. Love that
Hmm.
stuff, and that's kind of exactly how Mike runs his gym, right?
Yep.
So he's like, hey, you can come check it out. We'll see if you're a good fit. Basically, he was telling me like, look, I don't need you. You can come and see, and if I think you're a good fit, then we'll get you in
Hmm.
here. So um, I remember I was 5 minutes late for the very first workout because I couldn't
Uh oh.
find it. It's in like an industrial park,
Yeah, yeah. It's kind of hidden.
and dude, he was so fucking pissed. Like he would have probably tried to beat my ass, but because he just that, and that's why I love him too. Like when you're on his time and it's training, it's fucking serious,
Yep.
and I love that. So, and I had one of the hardest workouts in a long time at his gym, so I fell in love with it. I made the team, so to speak,
Yep.
and then I started training under Mike, and he kind of took me to another level, especially in strongman. So I decided to go and compete at the Arnold's and for adaptive athletes, right? And so the Arnold's was upper or lower, so that's how they kind of separate the categories. But again, it's the top adaptive athletes in the world, and there's not a weight class per se. So, um, like I competed against this guy named Chad Macklin, who was a former NFL guy who lost his foot, 310 pound fucking monster, and could move, like super athletic, and just moved weight like ridiculously fast. Um, so the first year I won the Arnold's, and then the second year Chad came in and I took second to him. So no, I was 240 at the time, so uh, totally feel cool with that. Chad has actually gone on and just won everything he's even tried. What's that one where they have the stick, and then they kind of put their feet on a board. I can't hear you.
Moss wrestling.
Yes.
Sorry,
So he just
I muted my mic because I had to cough.
yeah, I saw that. No worries, dude. Yeah, so he just decided to try Moss wrestling. The guy's like 6'8", 310 pounds. He's got the leverages and the strength.
Jesus Christ.
And he went and he just like he won everything he even tried. But anyway, like getting off track. Great dude, adaptive athlete. He's still out there doing shit. So after I did the Arnold's, I kind of went back heavy into work, and then I got called up to go to SEAL Team 6, which I won't get into that really
Yep.
big like we talked about earlier, but I did end up finishing my career out there for about 24 years in the Navy, and then about 17 years in Special Forces with 5 combat deployments. So that's pretty much in a nutshell. Now I obviously still love training,
Mm-hmm.
and I moved up to Michigan and have gotten huge into youth sports. My son's 11 years old. He's a very high level hockey player. I got him into football because that's what dad played.
Mm-hmm.
And then he plays soccer. The kid my wife was also a collegiate athlete, and then she played hockey her whole life. So the kid has some pretty awesome
Yeah.
genetics, and he's fast as fuck for his age. Like it takes everything I have to beat him in a sprint. He's only 11. Like,
That's awesome.
yeah. But what I started doing, because when I left the military 2 years ago, and all my mentors and the guys above me said the same thing. They're like, dude, you're gonna go through a really bad time, really hard time. You're gonna go into a very dark depression. Your PTSD is gonna start coming back up, all this other shit. You might have an anxiety attack. And I'm thinking, no way, dude. Like, that's not gonna
Mm-hmm.
happen to me. Sure as shit. Like, within a few months of me getting out and moving up here, it was insane. Like, deep, dark depression, had an anxiety attack in my truck. I had to pull over the side of the road, couldn't breathe. And it just was crazy. So it was all true. Luckily, nowadays we have a ton of outlets for vets, and they're really big in that mental health, that mental welfare. Um, they're really starting to attack it. I think they're trying to model it after a lot of what the pro teams are doing with their athletes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, they use a lot of mental health nowadays in sports, even. Um, so that the brotherhood, some other friends, I kind of came out of it. So one of the things I started looking at doing was training these kids. I had trained and I was a coach for the whole 17 years I was in the Special Forces.
Mm-hmm.
It was just kind of one of those things. The guy that could lift a lot of weight, looked like he lift weights. Dudes would just kind of flock to you, and then what are you doing? What do you
Right.
eat? Like all that other shit. I'm sure you've heard that a million times. So I just started training guys. I started training like very, very high level military athletes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Um, but I'd never, and some of them are pretty young, 19, 20, 21, but I'd never trained kids. So when I got up here to Michigan, I basically like went to my son's hockey team, the coach. I was like, hey, I'll start doing some workouts if you want, and bring him over. I have a pretty decent gym, home gym. I'm like, bring him over, man. We'll see what we can do. We'll do some conditioning, whatever. And then it just took off. Like, it was a huge hit. Um, and it was really interesting and an amazing learning curve for me in the last 2 years on how to train 10-year-olds, how to train 11-year-olds, and going
Mm-hmm.
into that preteen level. And honestly, you don't have to like baby them or coddle them like you would think. I give them the same lessons I would give the older young men
Mm-hmm.
with mental toughness and effort and attitude. It's all the fucking same.
Yep.
Um, and
Absolutely.
it transfers over to these kids very well. So then I started doing his football team, and like right now, um, they begged me. I'm the conditioning coach for his football team now,
Mhm.
and they want me to take over as defensive coach too. Um, so I'm probably going to do that too. But it's just become amazing. Like, and I'm the reward, which I'm sure you get too, of seeing your kids just crush it. Do something phenomenal in a gym. We have one kid that can do a 733 bar hang, which is insane.
That's a
Um,
long fucking time.
Dude, you could go watch like 3 or 4 of your YouTube shows
Yeah.
while he's hanging on the bar. And he's a farm boy. There's a lot of these farm boys up here that come out on the farms,
Hmm.
and they're fucking freaks, man. I have med balls all the way up to 200 pounds in the gym, and this kid's 80 pounds and he's 11 years old, and he throws the 80-pound on his shoulder like it's fucking nothing. Um, which is insane because you do have to take into account age, right? They
Of
haven't
course.
had much time to develop muscle,
Yep.
to develop strength, right? But this kid is throwing that shit around like it's nothing. Uh, Phenomenal kid, and I have 3 or 4 of those, right?
Hmm.
And I've noticed too, pitching them against each other in competition is probably the biggest motivator for them.
Yeah.
Um, at 10, 11 years old, if I'll separate them into teams now and then have them compete against each other. We have a stat board. So in the military, we always had stat boards too.
Right.
Who's the fucking best at this, this, and this, and this. Um, so I created a stat board for them, and then if you got the best score in that category, you get your stat in red. So like it's who can get the most reds, and they freaking love it, dude. In fact, I will crush them in a workout where I'm thinking like they got nothing. And then as soon as they're done with the workout, they're like, "Hey, can I try this on the stat board? Can I try to better my score?" I'm thinking,
Hmm.
where the hell do you get the fucking energy? Um, but yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at right now. I I've been kind of hankering to do something though. It's like because having some kind of competition has always driven me to work harder. And like
Hmm.
kind of right now, I will always lift. I love lifting, but it's
Right.
kind of like I don't have anything driving me really, right? My diet is not great. I know how to diet. I know the macros I need, so I get those in. But like whatever on the weekend, or if I'm going to cheat, or if I want to drink some wine or some beers, I just do it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's I'm kind of in that place now with what I'm doing because I mean maybe we jump into the injury because I think that'd be
yeah.
a great jump off point for a mutual conversation.
Hmm.
Obviously my injury was not. I'll give you a little bit of context. So
Okay.
I got hurt squatting 750, lost my balance, tore both my quads. At that point in my powerlifting career, my identity was not tied into powerlifting. Like I wasn't Paulo Need the powerlifter.
Yep.
So when you talk about dark places, the dark places that I went to were more so about, am I going to be able to still train? Am I going to be able to still do the things that I do to be me? And that had nothing to do with competing. It just had things to like physical capacity. I remember in the hospital bed looking at my wife and thinking like, because we want to start a family, it was, if I can't play on the ground with my kids, I'm a piece of shit.
Yep.
And so that's a huge motivator for me, even now, just to regain my capacity and do those things. But I couldn't imagine being in a position where, and I doubt that I'm wrong, but please correct me if I am. When you're a member of the SEAL teams, that is everything for you. And you've got a doctor telling you, hey, you got blown up. You're never going to do this again. See you later. Walk me through that.
So you're right. Like it becomes your identity. I say this too to a lot of kids that are trying to. I train a lot of kids that are trying to go into special forces too, and I don't know where in the timeline obsessive became a bad word, but
Hmm.
to be successful in something, you have to be obsessed with it. And it's the same thing in the SEAL teams. Like you have to be obsessed with it. It becomes your identity. It really does.
Yeah.
And as much as your senior officers, they always want to say, "Hey, family first, team second." That's bullshit. Like if
Right.
you legitimately put your family first, you would fall behind in the teams. It's just the way it is. So yes, 100% my identity to go flat on your back to a doctor saying you're everything you know or admire about yourself is fucking done.
Yeah.
Um, insane. Like the dark thoughts go through. You want to suck start a bullet, you know.
Yeah.
Luckily, my wife was there. Amazing, a brotherhood of friends were there to kind of help me through that, to come back from that. And like I said, I've seen dudes too that have been through the same shit and gone the other way. You know, got into drugs, got into alcohol, and just kind of let that darkness take over them.
That's an interesting dynamic for me because like I'm not wired that way.
Yeah,
Like I don't seek like when I'm uncomfortable, I don't seek a cope. Like and so when people were like, oh, are you okay and this and that, I'm like, yeah, man, I'm fucking fine. It's just another thing that I have to deal with.
yep,
But I also know that maybe not everyone is equipped with the same mental fortitude or the same wiring. So I am empathetic to that. But at some point, like you have a life to live. And if you're, I was 36 or 37 at the time, that's a lot of years to live a life that you're unhappy with. And I just wasn't on the table for me.
yep.
Obviously you said that you found adaptive athletics as that was kind of the thing that motivated you to regain pieces of your identity. Um, did you ever have those thoughts like those, oh, this is over for me kind of thing?
Oh yeah. So I was 3 months in the hospital, and they let me go. 11 limb salvage surgeries. They let me go home early because my wife at the time was a wound care nurse. That helped. That worked out really well.
Yeah, good
Um,
choice.
yeah, and so they let me go home early. Thank God, so that she could take care of me. But yeah, in the hospital, definitely had those thoughts in the beginning. I
Mm,
would say briefly, right? I think, and
yeah,
a lot of it had to do with like the massive amounts of painkillers coming off of deployment and just the multitude of shit that happened in
right.
like a week. Um, yeah, you're thinking the absolute worst. I think I agree with you. I don't. I'm just not built to go left on that one and go
Yeah, I
down the
mean,
path
yeah,
of drugs and alcohol. And don't get me wrong, I'm in the Navy. I love to drink. But I also have this just mentality of like wanting to do something and be successful in something. So I think that's a lot of us. But
hmm
there's the one or twos, and they were really good friends of mine and phenomenal operators that got back from losing brothers, like really close brothers, and just fucking went downhill and started getting into drugs, and then it just snowballs from that. Um, don't know why. I can't explain it, because they had a mental aptitude to be like very highly successful individuals. Uh, I don't know. Maybe I think it's more of maybe uh, a childhood thing or how you were brought up. Like his dad was probably an alcoholic or a juggie or something like that. And
mm. Yeah, I'm sure that plays a role. I think what what I return to is, the hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done. And I mean, when you've gone through buds and you've gone through selection, you've gone through all of these deployments and the challenges that you face there, yeah, those are probably really, really hard. I don't know if they were harder than your injury, but at least you have something to anchor the way that you're feeling about it. Like
yeah,
you have something to compare it to. So for me, I said, physically, it's probably the hardest thing I've ever been through. Emotionally, not even close. So
yeah,
managing that was totally fine. Um, Now, when you are, I'm sure you've been put in a mentorship role in some capacity with other, maybe operators or even young kids dealing with these hardships. Like,
Yes.
what are some lessons that you pass along to them that you learned along the way?
You know, it's kind of funny you say that because every once in a while I'll get a call out of the blue where, uh, one of my brothers or whatever will be like, "Hey, my nephew's a firefighter. He lost his leg. He's going through a really hard time. Like, could you just talk to him?" And so, of course, I give him a call
Absolutely.
and kind of walk him through. I think, what I tell them is to not dwell in your sorrow. Like,
Hmm.
find the support of your support group. Find whether it be family members or a brotherhood. Usually, it's a brotherhood, especially in like first responders, firefighters or military guys. Like, man, latch onto that,
Hmm.
and because they're not going to treat you with kitten gloves, right? They're gonna,
Hmm.
one of the best things that happened when the guys came in. Um, One of them brought. You remember those old shake weights that
Yeah.
you Yeah, they brought me a shake weight because they know I like to work out as a joke,
Yeah.
and a big pink teddy bear. Right, like that was my gifts for my boys. Um, and you kind of need that shit, And they
For sure.
basically are like, don't be a pussy,
Yep.
uh, and you kind of need that. Yeah, you need that check. So I've kind of passed that on, and then just talking to these people with someone that has been through the same shit or worse.
Hmm.
That's healing in itself. And then being the example too, like, hey, I went through this. It could have ruined my life. It changed me forever, but like, I, I wouldn't let it. I became successful in this, and this, uh, and having that mentality. I think trying to change their mentality,
Yeah.
um, to to that switch on is the
Well,
is the best thing I've found.
you give them an ideal to shoot for. I mean, when I look at my recovery in a year, man, my legs are bigger than they were before my surgery. I'm about to get on a bodybuilding stage. Like, this is not a typical recovery.
Hmm.
But what I can show people is that, hey, listen, from the moment I got home from the hospital, I have been 100% locked into recovery based activities.
Yep.
So I checked all of the boxes and then some. If you do that, these results are possible for you. One thing I did find, and maybe you can speak to this, is because I was able to recover the way that I did, yeah, it was inspiring for some people, but some people it also just wasn't relatable, right? Like, how many people have come back from what you've come back from in a way where they've won an Arnold and done all the things that you've done from a physical perspective? I would venture very few.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a good question, or even statement, right? Like, again, I think people. This is a huge problem in my belief right now. People put these labels on themselves to handicap themselves. I
Agreed.
have,
Yes.
I have anxiety, I have depression, I have PTSD, so I can't do this, I can't do that, and that's fucking bullshit. Sure, I mean, most of us have depression. Most of us have a little bit of anxiety. I've had very high levels of it. Um, but you have to transition to that mentality of you're not going to let that
Hmm.
dictate your life. Like, yes, I was in the SEAL teams. I was a bomb tech, and that was my identity. I was proud of it. But like, I'm not going to put this label of anxiety, PTSD, all this shit that I've been diagnosed with. That's not going to be my label. Like, I
Mm,
refuse to let that happen. And unfortunately, like right now in America, dude, as you know, like labels are in. Like, that's the in thing now.
yeah. I made a post recently that was like, you are not depressed, you are not anxious. And I got a little bit of flack from it, but the premise behind that post was that anxiety and depression are not identities, they are states. So you
Hmm.
are feeling anxious and you are feeling depressed, and maybe you're encountering symptoms of PTSD. But if you do not allow those to define you, you can move through those states and evolve in the same way that your identity has evolved over the years. You identified as a bomb tech, you identified as, a SEAL team operator, you identified now as a father, as a coach, as a competitor. All of these different aspects have been evolutions of your identity. And if
Hmm.
that doesn't showcase the ability of the human to change over time, I don't know what does. And that kind of puts you in the state that, like, all right, well, this is just a season of life. And this season of life kind of sucks. And it's okay that it kind of sucks because it's going to end at some point.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think one thing that you've gained from this injury too is you have a new knowledge of training
Oh,
former
absolutely.
injury guys or even adaptive athletes. And that was big for me too. I had to figure out how to keep working out, how to push myself with this leg injury. I had to invent new workouts, right?
Bro, there's no textbook for that shit.
Fuck no. Um, so you do it, you evolve, like you said, right? And
Mm-hmm.
now I guarantee you could go and coach adaptive athletes and crush, um, because you have that
Yep.
capacity to learn, and to change things up and be like, hey, this doesn't fucking work, let's go this way. But then
I
it's
think
pushing you.
sorry, I think hardship is the number one thing that can spurn growth in anyone. Show me someone who's had an easy life, I'm going to show you someone who's unhappy.
It's so true. Well, look at
You
all these
know.
kids nowadays that are raised, they're coddled, they're
Mm-hmm.
entitled. They live an easy life. And I see that too. You'll still get a couple, two, three kids that come in, and as soon as the stress gets put on through working out, they crumble, right? And then they need that positive reinforcement to go in there. But it's the same with everybody. I think hardship. You can line up 100 SEALs, 100 EOD techs, and I guarantee you 99% of them went through some crazy hardship as a kid.
Of
Some worse
course.
than others,
Mm-hmm.
or growing up, and not all of them, but like that's the common denominator right there. I remember when I was in the pipeline, they had this company come in and they were trying to figure out what creates a special operator, what creates a special forces soldier. We had to take all these computer tests and all this other shit. At the end of it, they couldn't tell you. You had dudes in there, kids at this point, right? From wealthy white kids all the way down to inner city. Uh, one kid I had on my team, like he has no clue where his dad's at. His mom was a crack. He lived in a crack house growing up as a kid. His sister died in his arms. Um, he had to fend off some dude in his house with a knife when he was 9 years old. Like the worst fucking
Yeah.
possible upbringing. Like hardship, big time, right? And those are the kind of guys that just you put them in a hardship through training, and they've been there before, and
Yeah.
that's why they go through it. Yeah,
Yeah.
very true.
Um,
Hardship.
Talk to me a little bit about, your progression as a father as it pertains to the lessons that you've learned. Because I think, and this is more of a selfish question than anything, because I mean, full disclosure, my life hasn't been hard. I mean, I grew up in a middle class family. I never wanted for anything per se, but I've always had this chip on my shoulder, and I've always kind of had these desires to always develop myself as a human being. And the hardships that I've endured have all been manufactured, right? Through training, through study, through, personal development and business. And I'm very curious about how I'm going to teach those lessons to my child when I'm
I have
lucky enough to have one.
that is a great question, and I've been asked that by so many fathers in the last 2 years, right? So I've had to put some thought into this, and you have to, just like you kind of manufactured these hardships, it's kind of carved you into the person that you are right now. You can do that with your children. I've done that with my children. You create some adversity, controlled adversity.
Hmm.
Um, and be it in anything, right? Whether it's sports or in the gym, or it's okay to push them as long as they're not injured and stuff. They need a little bit of adversity, because when they get released into the wild, when they're 18, 19, whatever, as well as I do, the world is a fucking harsh place.
Yeah.
So to succeed in that, I feel like you have to have adversity. You have to bring on some kind of hardship, whether it's manufactured or not. So that's kind of what I do with my children. Is I'll give them goals, I'll give them hardships, and sometimes my 11-year-old, I will purposely get him to do something difficult, which he may not like, but I know the benefit on the back end.
Right.
And my older son, I have a son that's actually in the Air Force right now, and he has come back. He's told me, I don't know how many times, how thankful he was that I pushed him, and I kind of raised him the way I did. It's made him very successful. It was kind of interesting because I trained him for a year. He was going into the Air Force Special Forces to be a PJ, and so I trained him for a full year for that. And dude, I crushed this kid, and sometimes I felt really fucking bad. Um, but to hear him come back and say, thank you, uh,
Yeah.
it, that's really kind of what it's about. And he's grown up to be like a very good, very well rounded young man. So, eh, long story there. Basically, do it like controlled adversity. That's what I call it.
Mm.
Kids need it, man. Let mom coddle them and all of their stuff. But Jordan Peterson has a very good
Hmm.
uh, analogy about this, about raising your kids. Let them play, let them get hurt.
Yeah.
That's what raises productive people in the world, right?
I think my kid's kind of fucked because my wife is a hard ass like me. She's probably worse.
Yeah. Well, they'll probably be great then.
I hope so. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's the question of fatherhood to me is an interesting one because I just look at it as an extension of coaching, because a lot
Mhm.
of the same lessons that I would teach a child, we manufacture within our coaching practices. The same way that you manufacture adversity in a controlled environment for your children, you do that with the young people that you coach. Right,
Yep.
you put them in competition scenarios. You handicap them in some way so that they have to overcome something in order to achieve a goal. You keep them goal oriented, and you keep them focused on the task. And these are things that are so valuable later in life. It was one of the things that I miss the most about working in the college sector is I don't get to work with that 17 to 21-year-old anymore.
Yeah.
So I'm not able to instill those lifelong lessons as much as I used to be. I still
Yep.
find ways. I still find ways because every person is on a quest for personal development, whether they know it or not. Um, I just the vehicle that I have to get them there is training and nutrition now. So
Yep.
I kind of just look at it like that. When so now you're still actively training special forces as well, are you not?
So I'm training candidates, right?
Okay.
So I train kids that are trying to go special forces, and of course, I still keep in touch with a lot of my brothers, and a lot of them will hit me up for advice on things. And one of my lifelong friends in the brotherhood, he's still in active, is just a fucking specimen. Like he's one of maybe 5 people that finished the 666 challenge. I don't know if you know what that is.
Yeah, deadlift 6, run a 6-minute mile, and isn't it
Squat 6.
squat 6, yeah.
Yeah, all within one day, and it has to be powerlift sanctioned, approved. Well, he did that, and he did it at a body weight of 200 pounds. So triple body weight squat, triple body weight deadlift, and
That's
he ran
fucking
like
badass.
and he ran a 5:55 mile. Um, Fucking phenomenal. But he's a freak.
Yeah.
I think he's on pace to pull 700 in the next couple of months, and he's like 225 body weight, 230 maybe. He's a freak. So I still hook up with him and kind of help him through some stuff, and some other brothers too will hit me up. So I guess I still kind of have my hand on the pulse of the special forces community.
What does training look like for a special forces operator?
Dude, it's everything. It can be, once you make it through, right, and you're on your team, you do have to maintain a level of endurance, right, and
Right.
fitness. And I think a lot of SEALs now, I call them endurance bunnies because
Mm,
they're more into the endurance type stuff than the crazy heavy lifting. When I was in, it was like get big, get strong, but you still had to be able to perform, with a ruck. And you're definitely, if you bring the team down on a mission, like that is the worst thing you can do. You never wanted to be the last guy, right?
well, the
Um,
endurance standards are quite high. I mean, you're talking. I'm pretty sure I'm training a guy for Air Force Special Forces right now. Their
I know
selection,
a lot about that.
it's fucking intense.
So the
Like,
water comp for that is insane. I would say it's
yeah,
as hard as buds.
yeah. He is a former SEAL Team 5.
Okay,
Got out um, because of he got married. His wife didn't love him being in the military. They've since had some discussions. He lost himself, went down a deep hole, and now he's working with me to kind of work his way back. And he wants to enter into Air Force Special Forces. So
nice.
trying to get him to a point mentally where he's able to go to that hard place again. That's been a big challenge.
Hmm. That's interesting. That's a great story. I mean, he has a huge advantage, right? He already knows kind of what he's going to have to go through,
Yeah,
um, and it's brutal. It's fucking brutal, and but he's been there and done that. So that's a huge mental win right off the bat.
yeah.
Uh, yeah, that's interesting, dude. Um, what were we? Dude, I have
So, it's
I have
all
so
good.
many TBIs. I like.
That's all good. The no is what is let's go through a week of training for special
Oh yeah,
forces.
training. Okay, so I think once you get to the teams,
Hmm.
it's kind of on you to keep up with your physical fitness.
Okay.
But the as you can imagine, the facilities are world class, like
Yeah, you've got a lot
amazing
of resources.
facilities, a lot of resources, great physical therapists. It spoiled. I mean, as you should be.
Yeah.
Um, so normally, it depends on where you're at. If you're in the workup and you're at home, your training would probably be like 2 times a day. You'd probably do some kind of an endurance type event, and then weight lift.
Hmm.
Some guys would go to more of the functional stuff, like CrossFit type stuff, Metcon type shit. And I did a lot of Metcons, a lot of
Yeah.
Metcons. Um, but some guys just it's kind of what you want to do. Like if you want to maintain, you have to maintain your endurance to a point, right? But then you can go and get bigger, get stronger, as long as you're not losing too much of. That's what I wanted to do. I,
Right.
I wanted to be the absolute strongest dude on the team. That was my goal, but not fall too far down the pipeline on the or the ladder on endurance. So that's kind of where I found Metcons and then running. I fucking hate running. Thank God my leg got blown up. I don't have to run much anymore.
I don't think
Dude,
anyone's ever said that, bud.
I know. Actually had a SEAL buddy. He was a dog handler, and he used to say, "Running breeds cowardice." I'm like, I love that line. But so that would become it. Then you go through fight training.
Okay.
So you go to Fight Club, and you get some pretty fucking hard workouts there. We train BJJ, we train dirty boxing, Muay Thai, the big ones, right? BJJ
Hmm.
was a big one. You kind of do a hybrid training, so you learn some BJJ with weapon systems,
Okay.
keeping distance and doing that kind of stuff. Um, and those were hard workouts, dude, because you're fighting SEALs, and
Right.
if the instructor says 40%,
That's
they
not a
don't
thing.
fucking go for it. Yeah, they don't go 40%. I don't think they know what that number means. Um, so you have that. So realistically, you're probably training 2 or 3 times a day, roughly, right? Um,
Then you've got your firearms training and
Yeah.
studying and
Yep. Oh yeah. Yeah. The studying is still, that's a big one too, right? You're still learning the job. Like you're still trying to be professional. Um, so yeah, all kinds of shit like that. The firearms training, it depends on if you go to courses. Like we would go to Mid South Shooting School, which you may like shooting now. Do that course, you'll be sick of it. Like tens of thousands of rounds within a week. You shoot so much, your fingers are bloody. Um, but that's how you get good, right? That's how you get
Mhm.
good at anything. After you go through that school, Mid South Institute, like you're a phenomenal shooter, and that is in the pipeline for your workups before deployment, right? So
Okay.
everybody goes through that in the SEAL teams, and then you go to these big exercises where they're full, like we'll do like a Mogadishu mile. So basically, like Black Hawk Down was a big
Hmm.
catalyst for some of these trainings that we would do in an urban environment, where basically, if anything can go wrong, it will fucking go wrong.
Right.
And it's kind of like a mass chaos training. So, and you have to, sometimes it's very, very hard to fit in a lifting session when you're doing these events, when you're traveling around, and doing these events that you might be 8, 10 hours a day in full kit,
Right.
shooting, moving, communicating, all that shit. To go to the gym was brutal. I don't know how I did it, honestly, because now I'm 49, and if you put me in kit for 8 hours, I would be like, and then said, "Hey, let's go to the gym." I'd be like, "Fuck off! I'm going to bed." Um, but I think it's just the mentality of the guys you're around.
Well,
Um,
yeah, you mentioned it earlier. Like, I don't think there's much more of a motivator than having someone else's life in your hands. And I think that that speaks to the brotherhood that you create. That's a lot of trust that you have in another person.
mhm.
And I'm sure the bonds that you make during that process are pretty profound.
Insane. I've never found, and I played sports to a fairly high level. Never found another thing in my life where the connection was so strong.
Mhm.
Uh, with that. I mean, you literally, I trusted my life with these dudes, and vice versa. And then going to war and being in, several firefights, several IEDs, a few explosions. Like, dude, I trust my life with these guys, and they did with me. You just can't replicate that bond in the civilian side, right? Um,
Mhm.
and that's, I think, why you still keep in touch with all those dudes, which is important, very important.
Leadership is a very common topic discussed in military communities. What does leadership mean to you?
Oh, that's a good question. You know, I was fortunate enough to in my career to end up becoming a team chief and actually being a leader in the special operations community. Um, leadership to me is willing to do anything that you put out or you send a guy down to do, whether it's clean a fucking bathroom to go down on a live bomb with people shooting at you. Like they need to know that you are not only have done that, but you're willing to do it. I think that's a big one. Leading by example is huge. It's such a huge
Hmm.
thing. I think we've all had management or leadership that was exactly opposite.
Yeah,
They would, and even in the SEAL teams, sometimes you get bad leadership, right? And you learn from that too. I think I learned just as much from bad leadership as I did from my mentors.
absolutely.
Uh, that's kind of the big thing. And I think also with leadership, which I've really been leaning on with training these kids, is you got to know your people. Like we worked in small teams, so for me, I turned it into a family. It wasn't like, hey, we're clocking in at 9 and we go home at 5. It was like we were a family. So,
Hmm.
I knew what their hobbies were. I knew their families. We hung out after work. Um, and then you have to learn what motivates that person. Um, Even though they're all highly motivated people, if you treated one guy and just chewed his fucking ass out, he'll shut down, and then he just
Right.
shuts down. He won't. But positive reinforcement, what's that old saying, like praise in public and fuck, I can't remember it. Anyway, then they just want to do better and better. But then maybe this guy over here, this kid, you got to get in his ass, and then that
Hmm.
motivates. So learning your people is huge. You can't. It's like training. You can't just
Yep.
do a blanket. That's one thing I have against CrossFit. Right? Is they do a blanket programming, and it's like the 60-year-old woman over here and the 19-year-old college football athlete is doing the exact same shit.
Right.
Um, it doesn't work. A successful team doesn't work like that. So you have to know your people for sure.
Yeah, I think leadership is one of those things where there are people who are inherently born leaders, but I think more of us learn how to be leaders over time through experience. You mentioned something really important, like walking the walk, and knowing that you wouldn't ask someone to do something that you weren't willing to do yourself or that you haven't done yourself. I call that being a product of your product, right? So
Hmm.
if you're trying to get someone to do something, you need to have some level of empathy for that task because you've done it before, and you've done it before with a very high level of proficiency. And then you also touched on the relationship that you build with people, because I think for me, being a leader means being a great relationship creator, someone who fosters connection, because ultimately, especially in a team environment, you have to know that you can rely on the other person, and that involves a level of autonomy that you provide them, right? So you can be a leader, but in my opinion, great leadership is a leader who creates other leaders.
Yes.
And if you can do that, especially with young people, you are giving them a cheat code for life.
Yes. Yeah. 100%. I think the only thing I would add to that, which I kind of forgot, is also standing up for your people in the face of adversity from
Mm.
above. Right. Um, I think some of the worst leaders I had, as soon as they would get pressure from above, would just fucking crumble, and they were yes man, and they were basically like, screw all of my people. I'm trying to save my own hide, so I'm going to do
Oh,
exactly what they
that's
say.
brutal.
Yeah, so I think being able to, and they need to see this too, standing up
Hmm.
for them and being like, no, I have their back. Like, I will take the heat. I will filter it out through me. Right. That is
Yeah.
huge. And that the best leaders I've had did that. So I always try to be that way too.
Um, I like to finish the podcast with a couple like quick hit questions, get to know you a little bit better. What's your fondest memory from the military?
Ooh, you know what? You're probably not going to believe this, but it was when I was in Afghanistan, and I was in the most kinetic uh, site at the most kinetic time of my whole career, where it was a firefight every day. It was an IED or a bomb every other day. Um, but that is the only time in my whole career where I was operating at the most primal level. Like,
Mm.
everything else disappears, all of your senses are at a level 10, and you kind of hit that flow state. But you're also, that was one time where I actually got to do everything I was trained to do. Like, I feel bad for some of these guys going in now because, timing wise, they go through this brutal 2 year training
Right.
to never ever really use their skills. So I would say, yeah, even though I got severely injured, I got blown up, lost my calf. I still think that, like, that was my high point.
Who is the best leader that you've ever encountered?
Oh, dude, that question. I, I mean, you can imagine. The best humans in the world, in my opinion, are special forces individuals. So, like, I've been blessed with like amazing leadership. Um, I honestly I couldn't name one. I've had some I've had some leaders that purposely put me through fucking hard adversity. And I remember hating him for it in the moment. But again, we talked about that, that made me a better leader in the long run. I think, I could probably narrow it down to like two or three that really were huge. One of them, Scotty Dayton, who is a legend in the community. Unfortunately, he died in Syria. He was the first American to die in Syria. He was working with
Mm.
Fifth Special Forces Group. He walked into a room with a bomb and got blown up. The PJ medic behind him lost both his legs.
Oh my
Um,
gosh.
and Scotty fought for like 2 hours before he finally, passed away. Uh, but he was one of the most highly looked out, sought after leaders in our community.
I
His
mean,
his
that's
mentorship, yeah,
the way, the way he did that speaks to, doing what you would expect others to do.
yeah,
Right.
100%. And he was in the twilight of his career as a senior chief, and he was still getting it with fifth group in Syria. Um, so like he should have been kind of taking a wrap off and doing the twilight of his career, and maybe riding the pine a little bit, right? And he did all that. He mentored a lot of guys, but he was like, "Fuck that! Like I have to be in there."
Yeah. What's been your most proud moment as a coach?
Ooh, oh, you got some good ones because you
I
never
try,
think
man.
about it, right? Like I think,
There's
and
the reason I asked, sorry, before you answer, the reason I asked that question is I think people who are very high level operators, whether it be in the military or in your work or in your life, very rarely do we stop and feel proud of ourselves.
very
So I
true.
always love to ask that question.
So, and I'll tell you this because you're looking to have kids soon, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Training my own children and seeing them do something they didn't believe was possible,
I love
bro,
that.
that that gets me in the feels more than anything I've ever done. Any
I have
accolade I've ever
goosebumps
done,
talking. Yeah.
dude, it does. Like I remember my son before he went to the Air Force. I think at 17 years old, he was trying to deadlift 405. I knew he had 415 in him, so I put 415 on the bar. Didn't tell him, and of course he got it.
Ripped
And
it.
and then when I told him, you just see him like light up in disbelief, dude. Like that was awesome. My 11-year-old, when he gets red on the board because he crushes something and he beats all the other kids, bro. Like that is the proudest moment that I've had as a coach.
I love that. Last serious question. If there was a billboard on the side of the highway, everyone will read it as they drive by. You could put any message that you want on it. What would it be?
God dang, dude, you should have led me with these so I could think about them.
Nah.
You know what I always tell, um, what I always tell in kind of a leadership role for my teams is perspective. Um, is having a good perspective or changing your perspective because that means everything. Perspective is everything. Whether you tell yourself you suck and you can't get this, you're right. If you tell yourself, I'm going to crush this, I'm going to succeed in this, you're right.
I love that. It's so true. There's a quote from Buddha. Actually just posted this in my story. I said it on a podcast recently, but the quote is, "Nothing is good or bad, but you make it so."
Exactly.
You have the power to change your perspective in every aspect. So I absolutely love that message.
Yeah.
Last question. If there's anyone that you'd like to see me interview on the podcast, who would it be? But the caveat is that you have to help me get them on.
um, oh, I have so many really good dudes. Probably my boy Maddie. that just did the 666 challenge. I
I'd
think
love to talk to him.
he's a current operator, active duty right now, so he wouldn't be able to talk about his what he's doing right now.
Yeah, we could
Uh,
talk training. We could talk mindset.
talk training. He can talk his deployments from the past, right?
What's his last name?
Matt Sherbick, um, phenomenal human being. He's a father of three boys. Um, he's still an active duty operator, and he was the guy when he first came in. He's younger than me. It was always a competition of who is the strongest
Mm-hmm.
on the teams, right? And I hung with him there for a while, but then he just went to another level. I think he qualified for worlds in powerlifting, and then he ended up having to go train or go on deployment, so he couldn't do it. Yeah, that dude is phenomenal.
I'd love an intro. I'd love an
Yeah,
intro.
yeah, he's a
Scott,
good dude.
I really appreciate you sharing your time with me, sharing your experiences, chatting, lessons learned. Um, I'll have links to where everyone can find you in the show notes, but thank you very much for your time.
No, thank you, man. It was really great to meet you, and
Yeah.
hopefully our paths cross
Oh,
again.
they definitely will.
Yeah,
They
we need
definitely
to
will.
talk shooting.
We're gonna chat after the podcast is done because
Okay,
I haven't told anyone publicly what my plans are.
gotcha.
I'm gonna kind of put that out there a little bit later. But
Okay.
thank you everyone for joining. Please make sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell for notifications, and we'll catch you on the next one.